Hello and welcome to the very last Red Robin pre-season mini-pod of the current run. We are, of course, powered by Budget Tyres, Autocentre and 360 Chartered Accountants. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by former St Helens star and current Widnes Vikings man, Kyle Amor. Kyle, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm very good, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to a bit of rugby league chat over the next sort of couple of minutes.
Yeah, and I think it'll be more than a couple of minutes, Carl, because there's absolutely tons to go through, isn't there? I saw you was at the Channel 4. I think was it the media day yesterday. You've got obviously championship season started up. We've got Super League on the horizon. We've got St Helens in the World Club Challenge. It's you know what I think rugby league sometimes does itself in. You know, we're a bit negative about what's going on, but for me, it's excitement. I'm really hotly anticipating the new season, and probably on the back of the World Cup as well. I absolutely love the World Cup. I love what we're doing with the women's game, the PDRL stuff, the wheelchair game, and for me, I think the men's game is still a fantastic product. What about you, Carl? Are you looking forward to the new Super League season?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I'm a huge fan of the game. I think it's going to be a very exciting season once again. I think the whole, IMG just sort of, although fans haven't really seen what they are bringing to the table, it's very evident early on that there is things happening behind the scenes, and it can only be a good thing for all the stakeholders in the game, whether you're a player, a fan, or anyone associated and linked with the clubs. It can only be a good thing moving forward, because ultimately we all want the game, John, to be where we all believe it should be. You know, we're very much as fans of the game, we believe that is the best sport in the country, but we've got a long way to go to convince, the wider sort of British public that is the case. You look at what the sport does in the NRL, and the sort of status and, the media exposure that those guys get, that's only sort of a distant dream for our crop of players and our clubs over here. We want to make sure that, down the line, that clubs are businesses that are growing, that are sort of, being able to generate enough income to take the game to where it needs to be. And in order to do that, we need everybody involved, whether it be, again, the fans, sponsors, and ultimately the players as well, to keep producing the product that we can deliver and bring to a wider audience on the field, mate.
Yeah, and I mean, probably a little bit off topic, but we seem to be one of the few sports or supporters of sports where we end up talking about off-field stuff, governance, the running of the game, more than we do actually about the product on the pitch. And for me, that is the selling point, and I think that's where Channel 4 have done a fantastic job in concentrating on what's happening on the pitch and showing that product. And for me, that's what I just love to concentrate more on. What is happening on the pitch, because I think if you sold that to people who are non-rugby league believers, who are maybe tuning into the game for the first time, that's what's the important bit, not necessarily all the IMG stuff, not about how the game's being run, not about disciplinary issues. It's the product which is the most important thing.
Yeah, for sure. Look, but I do agree with you. But obviously, the game itself probably needs moving forward a little bit. What that looks like, mate, I don't exactly know. But we can't carry on the way that we've been carrying on. We seem to go round and round in these sorts of circles, don't we? We seem to, go right. This is the year that's going to be bigger and better. And look, like, you're dead right. Ultimately, it should be the players that are celebrated. But however, given the current world that we live in and everything in this sort of social media generation, there is ways and means to promote the sport. And that's obviously what IMG are going to do. They've got people in that team that pretty much know how to, turn sports around. They've done it with UFC and they're hoping to sort of do it with Super League as well. So I think we have to embrace it. But the classic fan within our game will always look for pitfalls and negativity, to bring it down. That's just how we are. We're our own biggest enemy in many ways. But look, for me, very nice to hear that you say appreciative of the work that all the team do at Channel 4. For myself, I just want to I just want to talk the players up, for the recognition that they deserve me, and without over the top doing it. I want to make sure that I've got children myself, and my little boy's 11-year-old, and I want him to, if Tommy Makinson scores a spectacular try in the corner, I want him for that 10 seconds to think that that's the best thing that he's ever seen, and I think it's important that we recognise and celebrate players for what they actually do. Look, I was very fortunate enough to be in full time for 15 so years, and had a very successful career as well. So for me, it's so important that we look for ways to inspire the next generation, make them want to participate in the great game of rugby league, and if we can do that by giving these sorts of players any kind of little profile that they can have, whether it be on Sky or terrestrial TV, John, I think it's a huge shot in the arm for the game.
Yeah, definitely. And you are going to be part of the comms team on Saturday for our season opener. But let's just talk about you, Kyle. It's your testimonial year. I mean, you've got some fantastic events lined up. Cumbria versus Wales is obviously the headline, I suppose, for you. It's an amazing event. But when you look back on your career, did you ever think you'd probably get to this point? Because you're playing a position which is brutal enough. So the longevity in the game. Are you surprised to see where you are now, or you just take each season as it comes?
Oh mate, 100%. Look, I worked I left high school and went straight into a factory job and done 5 years in there before I even started playing part-time rugby in my hometown, Whitehaven. And to be honest, mate, when I signed there, that was just a case of, I'd been doing all my Bala tours with my local amateur club, Hensingham, and I was enjoying doing that. Went to go to like France and Russia, and we was penciled in to go to Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga with the Bala boys. And then I had a couple of clubs, Whitehaven and Workington, wanting my signature really. And in the end, I just thought, what, I might as well give it a crack. I'll be brutally honest, I just seen it as a way of still playing the game that I love, but also getting a little wage out of it. To be fair, my daughter was only a couple of months old, and I just thought, well, look, I might as well just bring in a little bit of extra income for the family, and never thought in a million years that 4 or 5 months later I'd get a contract from Leeds Rhinos. So really, mate, it was a whirlwind sort of year, and the kind of rest is history with myself for that.
Yeah, I suppose that route's maybe been closed down a bit now, hasn't it? I mean, we've seen the importance of academies and the players being signed up so young. Do you think that opportunity has been closed down? I mean, I know Rovers have we've picked up some players from the Championship, for instance, who've gone on to do really well, and obviously Rickson at St Helens now, another player who's come through. But I hope that pathway isn't closed, because I still think there's players who are in the amateur game who are probably good enough to at least warrant a crack at Super League Championship level rugby. I just hope that route isn't closed down.
Yeah, look, I think you're seeing a lot more people, a lot more clubs, like you mentioned there. Frankie Holton springs to mind. What a find he was for you guys last year. There's so many, isn't there? You got Chris Atkin, Alex Walmsley, Chris Hill. There's probably obviously a load more as well there, but I think the Championship's a real good breeding ground. I think if I was in charge of a young 16, 17, 18-year-old, I'd be looking to play these lads against men. I think you get that. I think you get more out of that than perhaps at an academy level. I think especially your forwards, I think it's a good idea to send young front rowers out into the Championship, not only just to play against men though, but just to see how little these players actually have access to in terms of resources and in terms of almost giving them a grounding. Because sometimes when you go to the top flight Super League, everything's done for you. Everything's catered and looked after, and you can almost fall into that. But it's not all like that. It's a lot of it is played by honest men. And I'm not saying these lads at top clubs are honest men. They are in the position they are because they're very good at what they do. There's no doubt about that. But I just feel that there's a lot more that we can learn by having a little stint in the Championship. It's certainly done me the world of favour. I come from a sort of working background, straight out of school into the factory, playing part-time rugby. So I like to think that those sorts of things taught me a lot of skills that are that are important in life. Like just being able to have conversations with people and stuff like that, because I think it's important really that you never get too carried away when you play this game, and realise that that you're only sort of a couple of years away from being back in the sort of real world, if you like. And I think it's important to understand that how lucky you are to play elite level rugby for a job.
Yeah. And you only have to look at, I suppose, our own Zach Fishwick. He was propelled into the first team rapidly last season. I mean, probably by accident with our horrendous injury record. It was almost a case of, is he any fit forwards left in the squad to play? But that is only going to benefit him going forward, because it's given him that taste of first team rugby, that first team environment. So that opportunity, it might come by accident, but he's only going to benefit from it going forward.
Yeah, sure. I think was it Magic Weekend, his first game? Yeah. I think it was. Yeah. No, there was quite a number of young kids there that day, wasn't it? And it's great to see. I think unless you're an absolute diehard of one club, it's again, I'll go back to what I say, me being a bit of a nerd about the game. I love nothing more than me seeing a young kid that we've never heard of playing on Sky or whatever, and wishing him well and see how he goes. I think, like I say, unless you're a robot, you want to see these young next generation of kids just tearing in, and there's almost something nice about it, isn't there? That these kids are at that point in their career, it's everything they've ever wanted, isn't it, John? Do you know what I mean? And they just get to go out there, and you can just sense how proud they are and how proud the family are. And I think it's great. The more we can see these young kids getting a shot, the better, really, because I think I read an article on Andy Lynch that wrote that we need to stop bringing perhaps these 34-year-old Aussies over and start giving these young kids a good crack. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know what, he's right there. Let's try and grow our game rather than sort of having it as a bit of a retirement ground for perhaps one or two other Australians.
Yeah, 100%. And Kyle, you've decided to go around again, another season. Widnes Vikings out pre-season going, and what are your hopes for the season ahead?
Oh, look, well, to be honest, mate, I kind of struggled a little bit, coming from full time to part time. It sort of, I thought that given my experiences, the things that I had going off the field, that finishing full time would have been, quite a smooth transition. But I certainly found it a little bit difficult. Not a cry for help by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not going to go down that road, but I did find it a challenge. It took me till about Christmas to sort of fully embrace and realise what I was doing, where I was at, what I wanted out of it, because I was all set for retiring. At the end of last season, I got to play Cumbria v Jamaica. Went back up there with the Cumbrian boys and absolutely loved it. Every time we get together, it's always great. The lads, we ripped in, we try. You know what I mean? We are a patched up team. It was thrown together inside of 3 weeks. We only had a training session together and then rolled out on a wet Friday night at Durwood Park and got the job done. So I actually thought to myself, no, actually, I enjoy this still. So obviously done the pre-season over at Widnes, and then really from Christmas time onwards, I've just got to enjoy it. I recognise that coming from full time, if you have a bad training session, it hurts. If you have a bad game, it hurts even more. If you're constantly thinking about the game. Going off again. You're constantly thinking about the game, and I think at part time, I question, because it's not their main job. It is in essence. It's more than a bit of fun, of course it is, but I question whether that intensity that I had for so long, especially in and around the group I was in, almost isn't there, but isn't there for the right reasons as well. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't be as full on because it is part time, and it took me a while to accept that, John O'Reilly. So for us, what we've spoken about, what we want to do is the club hasn't been in the playoffs since it's been relegated back in 2018. So our goal this year is to get in that top six. We're not going to get carried away. I told the group, only a few weeks ago that from an outsider looking in, the group gets carried away quite a bit. They started last year with 5 wins, and the things that the players were putting out, the things that the club was putting out, it didn't help them. Do you know what I mean? They have to remain humble all the time when you win, and so we're not going to get carried away. Our goal is the top 6, and that's all we'll look to do. Once that's hopefully solidified, then we can reassess and go again and see where we are. But we don't have any right to rock up into the championship. It's a bloody tough competition. I've had 2 games into it, and I can already recognise that each game is a dogfight. It's a bit like the football, really. From the Premier League into the Championship, it's so hard to predict. It is a dogfight every week, and that part of it I'm enjoying. But we don't have any right to just rock up and expect to win. We have to work very hard, and the moment we don't work hard, we'll end up with a fat loss next to our name. So as long as we can all understand that and buy into it, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, and it is a long old season, isn't it? And you said the Championship's so competitive, and you know what? I think Super League this season is probably going to be one of the most competitive we've seen for a very long time. I mean, you've probably got Saints, Wigan, top 2 maybe. You go down to the bottom, Wakefield, Leigh maybe, the bottom 2. But in between them, I think every team will think they've got a chance at the playoffs. And I don't think it's been like this for a number of years where genuinely all them teams think that they either must finish in the playoffs or should finish in the playoffs or want to finish in the playoffs. It's going to be really interesting to see how it pans out this season.
It certainly is. I do agree with you, Jono. I think Wigan are hunting down Saints. I think, they remind me of where the Saints club were at back in 2018. They got so close to big games. They'd had success in the past and they'd fell short. They've got their hands on the Challenge Cup under Matty Pete's first season. What a season he had in terms of guiding that club to that trophy. But, they almost embarrassingly fell out of the playoffs, getting beat by Leeds. Everybody thought that Wigan were nailed on for that, and credit to Leeds. Can they replicate that form from last year towards the back end? And who'd have thought that they would have been anywhere near the grand final 2 or 3 months into the season? There's Salford. Are they able to replicate that form? Brodie Croft with an 8-year deal. Are they able to sort of build that team, that dynasty that Ian Blease has spoke about around them? You mentioned Leigh being in the bottom 2, John. I'm going to disagree. I think Leigh are going to be okay. I think I see them finishing around 9th, if I'm totally honest. I do agree with you, though. If I had to put my yardstick in the ground, I think Wakefield are in trouble. So yeah, there's lots and lots. Huddersfield as well. We can't look past them. What a squad they have on paper this year. Catalan, they are always very difficult, aren't they? Again, what kind of Catalan team turn up? Are they able to stay with it all year? They do tend to have a dip. You're dead right, John. How the bloody hell do you call it? I don't know.
I think you could almost make a case for every single team to go, well, based on recruitment, based on what they're doing in previous seasons, that, they all should be in the playoffs, but the playoff is only 6 teams. So, and you've already mentioned if Leigh finished 9th, that means that there's probably going to be a couple of teams struggling who've not had a great season. But I think with Leigh's recruitment, I think they've recruited quite smart. They've got some really experienced players, and I think they'll be a team that on their day would be able probably to pit most teams in Super League. It's just whether they can do it week in, week out, which is the challenge for them.
Absolutely. I think you look at Leigh and you look at the players that they've picked up. One thing that Leigh's had a problem with over the last few years, and it tends to be, because they have less time to plan for recruitment. When a team gets promoted, their shopping list, most of it's gone, isn't it? Because lads have already sign contracts in the summer. You can't sign as a full-time player for a championship club off the off chance that they get beat in a grand final. So it does make it very difficult for Beaumont to do that. But I think, given that where they were last year, given that the fact that they've had a little bit more time, they've almost been super confident that squad was a Super League squad in the championship. The results tell you that. But they've had a little bit more time now to bring some people in like Jack Hughes with good leadership. My question and my only concern with Lee is that group is going to, at times, it's going to need man managed. And, a half laugh there because, there's some characters, let's say that, within that squad. And, hopefully, that Adrian Lamb and everybody else can keep a lid on them at times when things are going well. And for me, the biggest concern for Lee is that man management. Are they able to sort of do that week in, week out in the Super League? It's very different to the Championship. It's almost a different game completely. Within Rugby League, the Super League to the Championship, two very contrasting styles. But going back to Lee again, I do think that they've got a very decent squad. I love Edwin Apape. I think he's been outstanding. What a find he's been as well. I do see them. I do see them starting the season relatively well and picking up some. You imagine against Wakefields and you sort of your bottom four, they become 4-point games almost, don't they? Each and every one of them really. So it'll be interesting, mate. I'm really, really looking forward to it all.
Yeah, and of course, Rovers v Wigan is the biggest game on Saturday. But the curtain raiser for that is the World Club Challenge, a game that you'd have been chomping at the bit to play in. These are probably the kind of events that, when we talk about IMG, etc., that these are what sell the game to people. Not Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, etc. Do you think Saints have got enough in them to get the result? I mean, I suppose for Penrith, St Helens are at different stages of the season. It's still pre-season for Penrith, but no doubt once them players get over the whitewash, it's a full-on game. There's no quarter given.
Yeah, 100%. Look, Saints, they had a friendly against Widnes. If you look at that squad, there was probably half of the team missing, all the England internationals, plus James Roby wasn't there. So for them, their only first game was last week. So I don't necessarily buy into, some of the Penrith lads had a run out, not all of them. All the big names, a lot of the big names I've just seen this morning when the squads are announced back. The weather's going to be a massive one, 40-degree heat. I think the kickoff's being pushed back 50 minutes now to a 10 to 7 kickoff time over there, which obviously will be 10 to 7. I'll be at Craven Park with the Channel 4 team, bringing that game to you all as well before the Hull KR Wigan game. So look, I think it's going to be very difficult. I think it's going to be very difficult for St Helens to win that game. I do hope that they win the game, obviously. I think it's going to be very, very difficult, given those factors that I've already just said, that, the heat's going to be a massive issue. 40-degree heat. The lads played obviously against St George in high heat as well. But I need to knock that off, don't I? Played in high heat as well. But I just think it's going to be very difficult. I think Saints will make an absolute game of it. I don't believe and buy into some of the Aussie media that's saying that they'll be able to declare at half-time. Far from that. I know that Saints team, how proud they are to be in the World Club Challenge, to be over there, once in a lifetime opportunity. In fact, it may never happen again, an English side going over there. But look, you've got Penrith, who have dominated for the last 2 years. You've got Saints, who have dominated for the last 4 years. It's going to be a huge game, and I just, I hope that they can get it done. But I am expecting a close contest either way.
Yeah, we shall see. It's definitely games to look forward to, and of course the main game Saturday, like we've already said, Hull Kingston Rovers v Wigan. Mouth-watering really, and I think what Rovers have done really well is make games into an event. It's more than just the product on the pitch. It's more than just the game, and I'm guessing that's probably one of the reasons Channel 4 have decided to pick that game for their first game of the season.
Yeah, look, there's a few stories in there, of course. Go back 12 months ago, almost to the day, Jono. Wigan won 24-10, didn't they? And
don't
Matty
remind
Pete's
me.
first game, sorry to remind you about that. Matty Pete's first game in charge. Well, fast forward 12 months to this weekend, it's Willie Peters' first game, first crack, first sniff at Super League, and first look at his side in a competitive fixture. One thing that I'm very, very interested in seeing is what style of play will Hull KR do. So whenever you play against Hull KR, the atmosphere is, you've got to get your prep right when you go to Craven Park. It's a very hostile place to go and play. Obviously, that East Stand packing it all out, they do a brilliant job for all the Hull KR players. They're on the referee's back, calling for everything that they can. And again, you've got the old small changing rooms that you've got to cope with. You don't have the luxury of space and having your own sort of pre-match routine. All that's out the window. So, will they carry on playing this chaotic style, or will they be a bit more under an Australian coach? Will they be able to adapt to what he wants and play a bit more maybe conservative, high completion, stuff like that? I think the beauty of Hull KR is they were one of the very best at creating chaos and panic whenever you played against them, the style they played over the last few seasons. So, which it'll be interesting to see how they play. But going back to your point, John, I think what the club have done off the field has been great. I love that bit at the bottom end.
Yeah.
It almost has an Aussie feel about it, doesn't it? It's just a shame that it's not 40 degrees in Penrith and it's 9 degrees in Hull. So. But you've got to applaud people for when they come up with inventive ways of giving fans experience, and I think that's the next part of potentially the game that we need to bring back. Not go into the heights of Bullmania or anything like that, but we need to provide fans, kids, everyone who comes with not just the game but the experience, the day out. And I think Hull KR are one of the pioneering clubs at looking at that and trying to deliver it for that fan engagement to make sure that people come back.
Yeah, and it is Willie Peters' first competitive game for the Red and Whites. What have you made of the recruitment as well? Jesse Sue, Reece Kennedy, Tom Opachik coming over, James Batchelor from Wakefield, UC Fiding. We've picked up some decent players, and I think there's a little bit of expectation around the club now that these players who have come in seem to be players who are, well, we mentioned, didn't we, about over the hill Aussies coming over. These definitely are at that player.
No, and that's I remember we signed Sione Matautia, sort of that style of player, sort of mid-career, really wanting to come, buy into the experience, have a crack, and ultimately, because they've still got plenty of years ahead, you never know, they might love it, stay here. If not, they can have an opportunity to go back. So it's not just a case of they're coming over for a bit of a swan song. They're coming over to improve Hull KR, and that's what the exciting thing is, and that's what the Hull KR faithful should get excited about. I looked through the 6 players that they brought in, and I looked at the players that you let go, and if you look at that list, to a man, you say that Hull KR certainly improved. They finished 8th last year, didn't they? 6th back in 2021. So, instead of dropping 2 places, I think Hull KR can be one of those clubs that perhaps is looking to jump up 2 or more places this season. There always is a transition. There always is a buy-in from players under a new coach. So I hope that the Hull KR fans do appreciate that takes a little bit of time. Obviously, as fans, we're not very patient, are we? So I'm not saying that Hull KR are going to get off to a bad start. I just feel that the style of play, a lot of that group are used to sort of playing ad lib, off the cuff footy. Are they able to sort of adapt and put that into practice under Peters? You saw the tries against Leeds in the pre-season trial, and surely that excites everybody there. However, a trial's a trial. It's not the same, and we'd be fools to judge a season off them. But I certainly think the players they brought in, the stuff that's going off the field, it certainly makes it an exciting year for everyone at Hull KR. Very, very difficult task though in round 1.
Yeah, and it's I caught with Paul Cook yesterday, and I posed him the question: this is the most expensive Hull Kingston Rovers side ever assembled. We're at cap almost, or if not at cap. Our backroom staff is probably the most experienced it's ever been. Danny Maguire, Brett Delaney, Dave Hodgson, of course, Willie Peters. And I just wonder if Willie Peters is under a little bit of pressure to deliver in this first season, because we're in a game now where there is no breathing space. You're either there or you're not. And unfortunately, for a club like Hull Kingston Rovers, I don't think we can afford not to be there. And I just wonder if, obviously pressure manifests itself in lots of different ways, but I wonder if there'll just be a bit more expectation about Rovers, especially with the recruitment, etc., this season.
Yeah, obviously, look, you're saying there that it's the most expensive team ever assembled. Well, ultimately, it kind of does have to deliver on something. And what the expectation is of OKR fans, well, I'm sure there'll be a wide range in that, but I go back to what I say there, an 8th place finish last year. So you are an improvement or a return on that has to be a playoff finish, doesn't it? Really, in all honesty, So yeah, they've got a lot of experienced backroom staff, like you mentioned there. Their experience and guidance will only help them so far. It's ultimately down to the players. And again, when you were mentioning the expectation, I obviously didn't get to play at Hull FC or Hull KR for them clubs as a player, but isn't there always an expectation and a pressure in that rugby mad city? So it's good, it's good that they've spent the cap, like you say. It puts them on a level playing field then with the nearest and dearest rivals, Hull FC, who of course have been, they as a sort of player now / pundit, if you like, they scratch your head. They leave me scratching my head, because every year you look at Hull FC and you think, right, here we go. Now we're going to see a team that's going to be, and they just fail, don't they?
Long may that continue.
Yeah. So, look, I think I think having two very good competitive Hull and Hull KR teams is great for Super League. It is absolutely great, and if you can get those teams both, in the playoffs, scrapping for it. When you talk about IMG and selling the game, that is a great way to sell the game. Wherever those teams are, whatever position. It's always great to tune in and watch the whole derby, isn't it? It's brilliant. So look, it'll be very interesting for the reasons that you've already said.
Yeah, and we've mentioned about new recruits, but I'll tell you a couple of players that I'm really looking forward to. A couple of the old timers, I suppose. Ryan Hall, Sean Kenny-Dowell, Kane Lynette complements that left edge, combined age of over 100 of them 3 players, but there don't seem to be any sign whatsoever of them giving up or slowing down. And Kenny-Dowell even saying this week that it's the fittest he's ever felt. Although he's at the back end of his career, and they're the players that I'm really looking forward to seeing, because that left edge has been so prominent for the Robins over the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, massively agree. Lachlan Coote out the back of that as well, another 30 plus. My old mate Cootie. Look, I'm going to say, and this might be a ridiculous statement to some, I think Sean Kenny-Dowell has been one of the best overseas recruits in about 10 years, across Super League. I really do. I think what he's been able to do in that side, what a player he is. Playing against him, he's an absolute handful. When you're actually playing, he doesn't shut up barking orders at his team, shouting. He's a proper leader. You know what I mean? So, I know there's been loads of really good players playing in top sides, but I'm talking about the impact of a player that can have on a group of men in and around him. And I think, with Sean Kenny-Dowell, with Kane Lynette, with Ryan Hall, who seems to reinvented himself again over the last 2 seasons. He's obviously, when he came back from Australia, signed at Hull KR. There was probably a few Hull KR fans thinking, why are we signing this 30-year-old, 30-plus winger? But boy, he's returned in bucket loads, hasn't he, for you? So, I think sometimes, and I'm not just saying this as an older head, sometimes you just can't buy experience, can you? You need that. You need that. You need those groups of players who just know sort of what it takes, how to get the job done, and ultimately pass on those sort of, traits of what training needs to look like. And that's a massive one that probably fans don't realise, that training has to look a certain way. In order for you can't just turn it on the weekend. It has to look and feel a certain way all week to give you the best crack at it. And leaders in the group drive standards, drive behaviours, and so therefore, are absolutely massive. And I don't know the bloke. I don't know 𝓡𝓸𝓷𝓼 at all. But from my impression and watching him and how he plays the game, and I just think he's a real top quality centre, a top quality signing for Hull. KR.
He has, and it's not just what he's done on the pitch; it's his overall leadership at the club. As supporters, he's someone who you can really invest in. When he speaks, we listen, because he's not. He's someone who talks so passionately and confidently about the club, about how much he enjoys his time here, and you see that in his day-to-day stuff, and you see how that affects other players. And if you look at, if he's one end of the spectrum, you go to the other end, you've got a young kid like Mikey Lewis. I think, was he down at Channel 4 yesterday? I mean, he's been primed for being, one of the stars of the game. And he's another one who's I'm really looking forward to seeing, because each year he gets older, he's adding more and more to his game.
Yeah, he certainly is. And, as long as everyone can keep Mikey Lewis happy at the club, then, 𝓡𝓚𝓏 have got a really good player on their hands for the next few years. Obviously, the more and more he starts playing, the more and more he continues to deliver on the field, the more and more interest going to circle in and around Mikey Lewis. You have to recognise that British halfbacks are an absolute premium now, really, aren't they? And I'm not saying that 𝓡𝓚𝓏 is going to end up having to sell Mikey Lewis, but he's one of those players that if you're wanting to build a club and build success, then you have to invest in them. St Helens have done it with Lewis Dodge, Jack Wellesby. Mm-hmm. You have to invest in these young lads that are the future of the club. And but again, another terrific season Mikey Lewis had last year. Hopefully he can remain fully fit this year as well. He had a couple of little injuries, didn't he, last year? And but I just think in terms of that sort of spine with Parcell, Jez Litton, another young lad as well there. Lachlan Coote out the back of all that. There's a lot of good things, isn't there, 𝓡𝓚𝓏? If you actually think about it, there's a lot of right lads at the right age, experience-wise, who have been there, done it, won trophies on both sides of the world. And then you've got these exciting young British hungry lads as well. So it does create a good recipe for success. Whether they're able to sort of, one thing playing against 𝓡𝓚𝓏, you always thought is that they played the chaotic, expansive, tricky way, because they weren't the best at staying in tough periods of the game for longer periods of time. And, under a new coach like Willie Peters, can he bring that sort of defensive steel that I think that 𝓡𝓚𝓏 probably lacked at times? Of course they would play a way that would put you on the back foot, and at times it worked and they'd get some really good wins. But the question that I always had when playing 𝓡𝓚𝓏, or what we, at Saints always thought was, if you take this game to them over and over and over again, you will break them. Do you know what I mean? And it could have took half an hour, it could have took 70 minutes, but you would have got them in the end. And, ultimately, I think that's where Willie Peters, coming in, he has to, stiffen up 𝓡𝓚𝓏's defence. And if he does that, the likes of Parcell, Coote, 𝓡𝓚𝓏, Mikey Lewis, boy, they can attack, but there's two sides of the game, isn't there? And I think that's 𝓡𝓚𝓏's biggest improvement is certainly defensively.
Yeah, on that defence, he's going to be severely tested on Saturday. What are you expecting from Wigan on Saturday?
I'm expecting a very, very, very fit, high, energetic start. That's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting Wigan to be hurting, stinging, talking about how they failed last year, wanting to attack this season, questioning whether Saints can do it again. Not only questioning it, expecting them to go and take it. I'm expecting them to be wanting to say, we're going to go and take this from Saints. Whether they do that or not, well, there's 30-odd players in a red V will decide that. But I'm expecting them to come flying out the blocks, I'm just expecting a hungry, hurt side. So it's up to sort of 𝓡𝓸𝓷𝓼 to contain it, but not only, but not being fear of that. Embrace it, and think that they're at home. Let's give it back to Wigan and let's play our way and decide our own season, not just because Wigan fell out of a playoff last year in a semi-final. They'll be thinking, so what? It's about 𝓡𝓸𝓷𝓼 and how they start. So I'm expecting a really fast opening, sort of 20-25 minutes. I'm expecting a good physical game. I like the front rower. I like the young front rowers at Wigan in 𝓡𝓸𝓷𝓼 and Liam Byrne. I think he's going to be, one of the next sort of big names for a few seasons. I like the way he plays the game, and I think it's going to be a brilliant game that we can't wait to bring you from Channel 4. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah, and I think when you look at both sides, there's matchups and battles across the whole lineup. What we're all looking forward to seeing. For you though, Kyle, what your preparation for commentary? Just give us a bit of an insight into when your prep starts and how you get yourself ready for the game, ready for calling it.
Yeah, well, I normally probably start really thinking about it sort of Wednesday, Thursday, really, and then just start on all my notes there. Really, a lot of people think it's just a case of just turning up and cracking on with it, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. Sometimes there's probably, I'll probably maybe do a little bit too much, but I just like as a player, I always like to make sure that I'm prepared for any sort of situation, and as long as I feel I've done my prep, then hopefully, again, as I say, I've said this a few times that it's the players that write the story. We're just the lucky ones that get to say it out loud. So if they do their bit, it makes our job 10 times easier. Sometimes I wouldn't even need any of them notes because you just call it as you see it. It's only the games that are that are like pulling teeth, which we do get them from time to time, where you need to rely on all that sort of prep work that you've done. But, really, really looking forward to it. And also, slightly jealous that these guys get to play at the top level in the sport that I loved for so long. And yeah.
Excellent. And we've already mentioned it is your testimonial year, Kyle. You've got a giveaway over on your Facebook page, haven't you, for that Rovers fans might be interested in?
Yeah. So obviously with the Channel 4 stuff, we're taking games we'll be visiting all the clubs, and we just decided, obviously my testimonial, I fell a year shy of the 10 years at St Helens. It's an RFL testimonial. So I just thought that, what a way to sort of engage with as many different fans throughout the game of rugby league, and something that for £5 they can win the home shirt of each sort of ground that we visit. Come and have pictures with the presenters in the media trucks and the pundits. So there's different pundits going to be on each and every game. So some legends of the game will probably be turning up. We saw last year Paul 𝓡𝓸𝓷𝓼, Martin Offiah, the names like that fans perhaps won't have had chance to meet before. So it's just a little way of obviously raising money for the testimonial, but also as well engaging in something that 𝓡𝓸𝓷𝓼, in this case 𝓡𝓸𝓷 fans, a little experience that they might like to be a part of, and ultimately win a shirt signed by their heroes of their club.
Yeah, and where can people find that, Kyle?
Yeah, well, we've just been on our Facebook page, our Facebook testimonial page, across all our social media. They're all sort of linked together. We've got a couple of different guys and myself who run all that, and it'll just be on a PayPal link. So we're the posts on our Instagram, our Twitter, our Facebook as well. So if you just head over to those, and if it's something that you want to participate in and have the chance to win or draw it on Friday night, I'll get in touch with the winner, and we'll be nice and early at the ground, considering we're covering the World Club Challenge game, so they can come down at any point before sort of obviously we start working. So be an hour or so before the game, or even after the game, whatever. We'll get in touch with the winner, and they can decide whatever suits them best.
Absolutely brilliant, Carl. And it's been a real pleasure speaking to you. You know, every time I speak more about the game on Saturday, the season ahead, I get more and more excited. And I'm sure many supporters are like that. And it's been fantastic to get the insight from you, Carl, and your opinions on Rovers in 2023 and in particular Saturday's game. So it is, isn't it? It's really hotting up.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. Again, and everybody will be watching. You know, a lot of people will be tuned in to Channel 4 watching 𝓡𝓸𝓷𝓼 versus Wigan. The first game last year was the most viewed game, the Leeds and Warrington game on Channel 4. So hopefully we can get those sorts of figures again. But you know, I'd just like to for having me on today, Jono, and I wish everybody at 𝓡𝓸𝓷𝓼 all the very best of luck this season. I hope it's everything that you wanted and a little bit more, and you know, hopefully we can get some big games where, you know, the more and more times we get the TV cameras to 𝓡𝓸𝓷𝓼 and showcase everything that's good about them. So thanks again, and all the best.
Yeah, and you'll always receive a warm welcome, Carl. So thank you very much for coming on, and good luck for the season ahead, not just in the comms, but obviously playing-wise as well. All the very best. This has been the Red Robin pre-season mini-pod, powered by Budget Tyres, Autocentre and 360 Chartered Accountants. But for now, live, love, laugh and be happy.